Hi, my name is Haley Castillo, and this is Violence Against Native Women, Fairbanks, Alaska case study, and I kind of go a little further out with just Alaska in general here. So, violence against Native women. A report from the Violence Policy Center based in Washington, D.C. shows Alaska once again is at the top of the list when it comes to rates of homicide committed by men against women. More than 4 in 5 American Indian and Alaska Native women have experienced violence, and more than 1 in 2 of them have experienced sexual violence. Alaska Native women continue to suffer the highest rate of forcible sexual assault and have reported rates of domestic violence up to 10 times higher than in the rest of the United States. So we can recognize here that the violence against Indigenous women tends to be disproportionately high. Some of this has to do with community norms and just so I wanted to go over this. So what does this have to do with human security? So let's go over the definition of human security. So the CHS, in its final report of human security now, defines human security as to protect the vital core of all human lives in ways that enhance human freedoms and human fulfillment. So it means it's protecting people from severe and widespread threats and situations. This includes creating political, social, environmental, economic, military, cultural systems that together give people the chance of survival, livelihood, and their dignity. Knowing this, you can see how violence against women, which is directly and indirectly affects the vast number of people, is included in this definition as well. So why? Why is there such a large amount of sexual violence going on against these Indigenous women? So I was able to boil it down to kind of 3 main things here. So that's going to be jurisdiction, lack of resources, and lack of awareness. So with jurisdiction, there are many jurisdictional complexities and limitations in the Indian country and Native communities. There is a confusing division of authority among tribal, federal, state governments results in more issues because there is a lack of tribal courts. The problem with not knowing jurisdictions is that certain cases can cause conflict and confusing for law enforcement, prosecution, courts, service providers, and crime victims in Indian country. This means that these people who are committing these acts of domestic violence and misdemeanors don't often run into consequences or get prosecuted in these territories. This is worse because Supreme Court has it where tribal governments are not even able to prosecute non-Indians in their territories. Going on to lack of resources, this is talking about people and law enforcement are exhibiting on many tribal lands due to insufficient funding, inadequate training, and victim trust outside of authority. With lack of awareness, this is being in such small communities, many women refuse to believe that this treatment they're enduring is actually abusive. In such small communities, it almost seems like it's a norm to them, which is something that's really sad but true. They'll downplay how much they have been harmed by sexual harassment, even when they in fact have been sexually assaulted extremely. There's also a fear of speaking up in such small groups. Even without violence, it's harder to speak up. So with such a big problem, of course, it's going to be hard for someone to speak up. So I was able to find 2 main solutions. The first one was vamping up the Office for Victims of Crime. I've never even heard of this until now, but they are super cool, and here's what they are. The Office of Crimes, they're also known as the OVC, provides support to enhance American Indian and Alaska Native communities, the ability to provide services and support for adult children victims of sexual assault with the help of sexual assault nurses, examiners, and sexual assault response team initiatives. And then with this, so making this group more known and making these communities more aware of it would definitely be more helpful. And going on with being aware, so being aware, for a woman to be aware, this is having the education and the ability to recognize the warning signs of sexual assault. This will lead to asking for help and hopefully stopping it from occurring again. And then overall, the problems that I found was jurisdiction. It can be really confusing and making it difficult to stop the problem. Lack of resources. Officers don't have the ability to go in and out of their different territories and still be able to afford it. And then with lack of awareness, a lot of Native women don't realize they are victims of sexual assault, or they don't have the ability to speak up. So solutions for that I found was vamping up Office for Victims of Crime, which could help them after they suffer, and then having awareness, so having that ability to know when they are being victims and when they should speak up and what they can do about that.